They say everything changes when you become a mother. For me, that was true. But not in the way I expected. The moment my husband Marcus first saw our newborn son, he didn't cry, smile, or even try to hold him. He just stared at him for a moment, then casually said, "We need a DNA test." The room instantly went quiet. Then, with a half smile, he added, "He's too good looking to be mine." The air seemed to vanish. I sat there in my hospital bed, holding our son Liam just hours after giving birth, feeling completely stunned. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I instinctively pulled him closer. His skin was soft and still had that pinkish glow. His tiny hand was curled into a little fist near his cheek, and he made a quiet cooing sound, completely unaware of the tension in the room. At first I laughed. Because honestly, what else do you do when your husband of 4 years says something so ridiculous? But no one else really joined in. One of the nurses let out a nervous chuckle, more out of awkwardness than anything else. My mom, who'd been scrolling through her phone by the window, suddenly tensed up. "Marcus," I said, trying to keep things light, "what are you talking about?" He didn't laugh. He just stood there, arms crossed, staring at Liam like he was trying to figure out a mystery. His eyes narrowed slightly and that smirk was still there. "I'm just saying," he shrugged. "Those eyes, that hair, that little chin dimple. Come on, there's no way he got all those good genes from me." I felt my face flush, not from the compliment, but from what it implied. My chest tightened, like a rope was slowly squeezing the air out of me. I tried to laugh again, but it came out weak. "So what, you're serious? You really want to test?" Marcus walked closer to the bed, leaned down to look at Liam and casually said, "Just to be sure." Like we were talking about checking the oil in a car, not questioning the paternity of our newborn. A slow burn crept up my neck, and my hands started to shake as I adjusted Liam in my arms, pulling him closer to my chest. His warmth was the only thing keeping me steady in that moment. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed my mom stand up. Her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't say anything, but I knew exactly what she was thinking. She'd never fully trusted Marcus. And maybe, in that moment, neither did I. I looked at my husband. The man who'd been there for every appointment, who painted the nursery pale green, who told me we'd name our son after his grandfather. And suddenly I saw someone different, someone distant, cold, suspicious, covering all his biases. He shrugged again, as if it was no big deal, but it was a big deal. Because in that instant, everything changed. The room, the joy, even Liam's gentle breaths, all of it felt overshadowed by the cloud he'd cast. Why did his words hurt so much? Wasn't I enough? Didn't he trust me? I didn't have the answers yet. But I knew one thing. This moment should have been beautiful. But instead, it marked the start of something I never saw coming. After Marcus made that comment, everything shifted. Not just in the room, but inside me. You'd think after giving birth, your mind would be filled with thoughts about your baby, counting fingers and toes, memorizing their little sighs, falling in love with every blink. But instead, all I could think about was him, Marcus, and what he'd said. 2 days later, we were discharged. My mom insisted on staying with us for a while to help, but I knew it wasn't just about helping. She didn't trust Marcus alone with me. I told her she was being dramatic, but she didn't argue. She just gave me that look, tight-lipped, eyes full of concern. Marcus, on the other hand, acted like everything was fine. He didn't bring up the DNA test again, not once. He changed diapers, made jokes, even posted selfies with Liam on Instagram, captioning them with things like, "Already got my mini-me." I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was just a stupid joke made at the worst possible time. But something inside me began to ache. A quiet, gnawing ache. The kind you can't explain, but feel deep in your bones. It wasn't just the comment. It was the way he looked at Liam sometimes, like he was trying to figure him out. One night, I found him standing over the crib, just staring. He didn't notice me watching. His brow was furrowed, his eyes squinting slightly like he was looking for something he couldn't quite find. When I stepped into the room, he jumped a little and quickly tried to brush it off. "Just wondering when he's going to start looking like me," he said. I smiled, but there was something about the way he said it that made my skin crawl. Then, little things started happening. Things I might have brushed off if I weren't already feeling uneasy. One afternoon, a nurse from the hospital, Rachel, I think, called to do a routine follow-up. Her voice was polite, but I swear I caught a strange hesitation when she asked for Liam's hospital ID number. I gave it to her, and there was a long pause before she assured me everything was fine. I asked if something was wrong, and she quickly said no, but the way she said it didn't feel right. Later that night, I went through Liam's hospital papers and noticed something strange. The wristband they put on him at birth. One of the numbers was off by just one digit from mine. It could have been a typo, but once you start doubting, you can't stop. I ended up Googling newborn ID errors for hours and fell down a rabbit hole I never expected to find. Eventually, I showed Marcus. "Are you serious right now?" he said, laughing. "You were the one upset with me for even suggesting something was off, and now you're acting like the baby might not be ours?" I opened my mouth to argue, but he kept going. "Sophie, you're tired. You just had a baby. Your hormones are all over the place. Don't let this get in your head." He kissed my forehead and walked away, leaving me standing there holding a bunch of medical papers with my mind full of doubt. Maybe he was right. But if everything was fine, why couldn't I shake the feeling that something wasn't? I started checking everything obsessively. His birth certificate, the wristband, old ultrasound records, photos. I became someone I didn't even recognize. A mother with a newborn in one arm and a browser history full of worst-case scenarios in the other. I didn't want to believe Marcus was serious about the test. But now, deep down, I wasn't so sure he was wrong to ask. And that thought terrified me. A few days later, Marcus brought it up again. He didn't do it during a fight or with any trace of anger. He just mentioned it casually over coffee, like he was talking about a dentist appointment. "So I found a private clinic that does same-day DNA testing," he said, sipping his coffee. "Discreet. Reliable." I blinked, unsure if I had heard him right. "You're still on that?" He looked up at me, his eyes calm, but too calm, too controlled. "I think it'll just give us both peace of mind." Both. I didn't respond immediately. I stared down at Liam curled up on my chest, his tiny lips twitching in a peaceful dream. He looked so perfect, so innocent. The thought that anyone, even his father, might question him felt like a slap in the face. But at the same time, I couldn't deny that I had been questioning things too. Like the wrong ID number, the nurse's strange hesitation, and the way Marcus had stared at Liam in the dark as though he were trying to figure out a puzzle. "I thought you said you were joking," I whispered, still staring at Liam. Marcus shrugged. "Half joking. But seriously, Soph, wouldn't it help you too? You've been acting different. Anxious." He wasn't wrong. But something in his tone didn't sit right. It wasn't concerned. It was strategic. Like he already had a story in mind and was waiting for me to catch up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept watching Marcus out of the corner of my eye. Not because I thought he'd hurt Liam, but because I realized I didn't really know him anymore. Or maybe I never had. The next morning, I called the hospital. I said I had a few questions about Liam's birth records. The woman I spoke with transferred me to one person, then another, and finally, I was connected to a hospital administrator named Ellen, who seemed cautious. "Everything looks fine on our end," she said after a pause. "Healthy baby boy. Born at 3:42 a.m., no complications." "But his bracelet didn't match mine," I said. "Just one digit off." "That can happen," she responded quickly, almost too quickly. "We've updated our labeling system since then." Before I could ask more, she interrupted. "You should speak to patient records if you want printed documentation." Click. I sat there for a long time with the phone still in my hand. It felt like everyone was trying to make this go away, as if ignoring it long enough would make it disappear. That same day, I started going through Marcus's old things, his documents, high school yearbooks, anything I could find. I told myself it was just out of curiosity, but deep down I was searching for something. Something that would either confirm my fears or put them to rest. But there were gaps. No baby photos, no childhood keepsakes. Just a few adult IDs and his college diploma, which I suddenly noticed didn't list a middle name. I'd never noticed that before, or maybe I never questioned it. When I asked him about it later, he just laughed. "Fire burned all that stuff when I was a kid. Remember? I told you that." Had he? I couldn't remember. Every little inconsistency started to feel like a thread, and once you start pulling, it's hard to stop. Still, I agreed to the DNA test. Not because I thought Liam wasn't ours, but because I needed proof. Not about Liam's identity, but about Marcus's. I didn't say that out loud, of course. I just nodded and said, "Okay." The moment I did, Marcus let out a deep sigh of relief. That was when I realized he wasn't worried about what we might find out. He was afraid I'd stop asking. The DNA test was scheduled for Thursday. Marcus took care of everything, calling the clinic, filling out forms, even driving us there like it was just another normal family outing. He was so calm. Meanwhile, I felt like my chest was wrapped in barbed wire. Every time I looked at him, it tightened. Liam was in his car seat in the back, blinking up at the ceiling, trying to take off his little socks again. He was the only one in the car who looked calm. I envied him. We gave the samples, Liam's and mine, to Marcus, and we were told we'd get the results in 5 business days. Marcus joked on the way out. Bet he's 80% angel and 20% trouble. But I barely heard him. My mind was already racing. 5 days. 5 days of sitting in this uncertainty. The thought that my husband might believe our son wasn't his. And the even harder realization that I didn't really know who he was anymore. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, pretending to scroll through my phone while Marcus fell asleep next to me. But my mind wouldn't settle. His story about losing childhood memories kept replaying in my head. It felt too rehearsed. I couldn't even remember why he'd told me that before. The next morning, I left Liam with my mom and went back to the hospital alone. I told them I had left a small blanket with Liam's name on it, which was a complete lie. But it got me past the front desk and into maternity. As soon as I saw Nurse Rachel, the one who had seemed uncomfortable after the birth, I felt a jolt of hope and dread. She recognized me right away. "Sophie, right?" she said, offering a soft smile. "How's the little guy?" "Good," I said, trying to sound normal, but then I added, "I have a weird question." I told her about the mismatched bracelet, the wrong digit, and the follow-up call. I expected her to brush it off, but instead, her face went pale. I shouldn't say anything," she said, glancing around nervously. "But that night we did flag a potential mismatch. Just for a moment, something in the system glitched and showed 2 babies under your ID number. But it was cleared up. Management said it was a system error and told us to move on. I felt the blood drain from my face. Was Liam ever taken out of the room without me? I asked. Rachel hesitated. For a routine check. Yes, but only briefly. How long is briefly? She didn't answer. I thanked her, feeling numb, and left the hospital in a daze. My hands were shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. My throat was dry, and the words, 2 babies under your ID, kept echoing in my mind like a siren. I couldn't tell Marcus what I'd learned, not yet. I needed more. So I started digging. Social media, online archives, anything I could find about Marcus's past. I even searched public record databases, something I never thought I'd do in my life. It felt like I had turned into a detective in my own marriage. But the more I looked, the more things didn't add up. There was no trace of his high school graduation. No tagged photos before 2012. And strangely, not a single person online who had any memory of him before college. Not even a childhood friend. It was like Marcus had only existed since he was 21. I stared at a blank profile picture on an old college alumni page, my stomach twisting in knots. I had agreed to the DNA test to prove that Liam was ours, but now I wasn't sure what scared me more. The thought that our son might not be Marcus's, or the growing fear that Marcus wasn't who he said he was at all. The call came early on a Wednesday morning. I was standing in the kitchen, rocking Liam in one arm and still in my pajamas, when my phone rang. The screen just showed unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Something inside me froze, but I picked up anyway. Mrs. Evans? A calm, measured voice said, "This is Dr. Graham from Greenbrook Medical. We need you and your husband to come in today to discuss the results of your paternity test, in person." In person? I asked, my throat going dry. Yes, it's urgent. My stomach dropped. I couldn't even speak. I just nodded, as if he could see me. When I told Marcus, he didn't ask any questions. He just said, "Finally," and grabbed his keys. The drive to the clinic was quiet. Liam was asleep in his car seat, completely unaware of the tension around him. I stared out the window, my heart pounding, trying to calm my breath. At the clinic, a nurse led us to a small private office. It was cold inside. Sterile, like they'd deliberately drained the warmth out of the room. The digital clock on the wall ticked loudly every second, each one hammering against my nerves. Then Dr. Graham walked in. He was middle-aged, graying at the temples, with a no-nonsense demeanor. He sat across from us, opened a file, and paused long enough that I could feel my chest tighten. "I'm going to be direct," he said. "The results came back, and they're highly unusual." I tightened my hold on Liam, suddenly more aware of how warm and real he felt in my arms, my anchor. Dr. Graham looked at me first. "Sophie, biologically, this child is not related to Marcus." I didn't even blink. Somewhere deep down, I already knew that. But then he turned to Marcus. His eyes lingered on him for a moment too long. I could see something flash across his face. Hesitation. Maybe even fear. "And Marcus," he continued, his voice quieter now. "You're not a biological match for this child, but more importantly, your DNA doesn't match any records associated with the ID you submitted." Marcus froze. I glanced at him, expecting confusion, denial, something. But his face didn't move. Not even a twitch. Dr. Graham closed the file. We cross-checked through our internal system. Your name, your date of birth, even your photo. All of it triggered a federal alert. I felt my blood run cold. "What are you saying?" I whispered. Dr. Graham didn't respond right away. Instead, he picked up the phone on his desk, pressed a button, and said one sentence I'll never forget. "Security, we need you in room 4 immediately." It felt like time froze. I slowly turned to Marcus, and for the first time I saw a flicker of panic in his eyes. Just for a second. Then it was gone. "What the hell is going on?" I whispered. Marcus stood up, his voice sharp. "This is ridiculous. You think I'm some kind of, what, con artist?" But Dr. Graham didn't flinch. "We don't think we know. Your DNA matched a man named David Langston, arrested in 2014 and disappeared shortly after posting bail. The real Marcus Evans died in a car accident the following year. We're not sure how long you've been living under his name." I couldn't breathe. The room spun. The man I had married, the father of my child, the man I thought I loved, he wasn't even real. As 2 uniformed guards entered the room, David, looked at me. Not with guilt or regret, but with a quiet sadness. It was as if, for just a moment, he had actually wished to be someone else. And then, just like that, they took him away. Out of my life. Out of Liam's. Out of the lies we had been living. I didn't cry right away. Not when they handcuffed him. Not when the door slammed behind him. And not even when Dr. Graham handed me the printed DNA results. Like a final confirmation that none of this had been a dream. I just sat there, numb, holding Liam close to my chest. His tiny head resting under my chin, like he was the only real thing left in the world. The days that followed felt like wading through water. Everything slowed down. Everything felt heavy. Reporters started reaching out once the story hit the local news about a man living under a stolen identity, posing as a husband and father. They called it a bizarre paternity case with a criminal twist. I hated that phrase. This wasn't just a story. This was my life. It turned out David, Marcus, or whatever his real name was, had been switching identities for years, running from debt, legal charges, and even rumors of fraud in another state. He wasn't a violent man, at least not physically. But the betrayal cut deeper than any bruise ever could. What kind of person fakes an entire life just to be with someone? And worse, what kind of person becomes a father in the middle of that lie? For a while, I couldn't stop blaming myself. I replayed every moment with him. Every birthday, every laugh, every "I love you." Searching for the cracks, the clues, the signs I had missed. But the truth is, people like him are experts at pretending. They're skilled at becoming exactly who you need them to be. But here's what hit me hardest. Liam was mine. I had feared the worst. That somehow I had gone home with the wrong baby. That Liam had been switched. But after the investigation, the hospital confirmed what Nurse Rachel had tried to tell me. There had been a system glitch, a mix-up. But it was fixed before we were discharged. Liam had never been away from me long enough to be swapped. He was mine from the moment he took his first breath. Still, in some twisted way, David had used that glitch to his advantage. He fed the doubt, leaned into the confusion, and made me question everything, just so I wouldn't question him. Clever. Cruel. Calculated. It took me weeks to say his name out loud. Even longer to stop thinking of him as Marcus. Now it's just me and Liam. We moved back in with my mom for a while. Angela never said, "I told you so." Instead, she just held me when I finally let myself cry. And she holds Liam like he's the whole world. Because to me, he is. I filed for an annulment. Surprisingly, there were no legal complications. You can't stay married to someone who never really existed. Sometimes I still get mail addressed to Marcus. I just toss it in the trash without opening it. Other times, late at night when Liam's asleep and the house is quiet, I think about the man I thought I loved. The version of him who sat with me during late-night feedings, who painted the nursery pale green, who kissed my forehead before every doctor's appointment. Was that real? Or just part of the lie, too? I don't know. Maybe I never will. But here's what I know for sure. Sometimes, the truth doesn't just hurt. It shakes you to your core. It forces you to rebuild everything from scratch and figure out who you are without the person you thought would always be by your side. And through that messy, painful process, you end up finding something stronger. Yourself. For me, I found Liam. And that's more than enough. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story. If you've ever questioned everything, your relationships, your reality, or even your own instincts, just know you're not alone. Sometimes the hardest truths help us discover the strongest versions of ourselves. If this story resonated with you, made you feel something, or reminded you to trust your gut, please give it a like. Share it with someone who might need to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe for more real, raw, and powerful stories like this one. Your support means more than you can imagine. And who knows, maybe the next story will be the one you needed to hear. Until next time, take care of your heart, and trust it too.